When you redefine aging for yourself, you may have to swim upstream. There will be resistance, your own as well as others. Having always had a certain example of aging and few examples unique to it, to redefine aging, you first have to be able to imagine it. What do you see? If you're in a certain relationship or a career, you've often, without even realizing it, defined yourself by those qualities. You're a teacher or a nurse, or you're a wife or a mom or a caregiver or a doctor or a lawyer. To redefine aging and rebrand yourself so you can become it, you first have to imagine you with a new set of labels or descriptors. What would that be? What would be so delicious and so delightful you jumped out of bed, excited for each day? Redefine what you want and see for yourself, and you will redefine aging. My guest has made a major career pivot. Not unlike Hollywood celebrities, this fitness celebrity is helping spread the message that we can redefine aging and rebrand ourselves at any age. I'm Deborah Atkinson. You are listening to Flipping 50, where I address your top struggles and concerns, and I share what to eat, how to move, and how to change your mindset so that you can have the energy and the vitality that you want, need, and deserve in this second and better half. And today's podcast is brought to you by the Flipping 50 protein and fiber boost supplements. So if you're not getting enough fiber, did you know women tend to be on the constipated side, very irregular, and fiber is such a boost to stabilization of blood sugar that energy levels are far better and stable throughout the day when you have more fiber in your diet. And yet in our on the go, on the run lifestyles, it's sometimes hard to get. So I will add a little scoop, maybe a little scoop and a half to my smoothie, where I've already got ideally about 15 grams of fiber in my diet by breakfast. And did you know that's the average Americans get? And do you know where better or optimal health lives? Somewhere between 35 and 50. Now, don't go there today, but a small portion, little bits of places throughout your day is something your body can adapt to. And rather than get it from one source that may not be familiar with your body, so much better to get it from 5 or 6 sources that are just like real food if you're adding it to your diet in terms of supplements. I'll put the link in the show notes to all of those options, because remember, protein and fiber together kill cravings. All right, my guest, NatalieJill. She is a fat loss expert and creative sales strategist who helps women reignite, redefine, and rebrand what aging has to mean. 50 years old herself, and you will not believe that if you see her picture. She's changing conversations around age, potential, and possibility. She helps entrepreneurs as well craft their unique, compelling story and expand their brand and excel on social media. She used the exact methods she teaches to grow her globally recognized fat loss and fitness brand with well over 3 million. Yep, you heard that right. 3 million social media followers worldwide. So health coaches, fitness pros, I know you're listening. You want to pay attention to this one and to the sister episode where I interview her about marketing strategies. She's got 2 best-selling books, a top-ranked podcast, and a recognition from Forbes and Great List several years running as one of the top health and wellness influencers in the world. And we're here not just to welcome her to Flipping 50, but to her own flip of 50. NatalieJill, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so every listener on this podcast wants to know for you, how was your transition into 50s?
You know what? It was nothing eventful. It's more a weird thing when you think that number, because, when you're younger, you think that's so far away. I remember thinking at my 20s, like that's a lifetime away. It didn't. So to think that that's where I'm at now, it's a weird thought, but I don't feel any different.
Cool. And I have to tell you this, so we might as well start with flattery. Okay. So I have an EA and she was hooking this up and she's, sending the details and we're talking just a little bit about the show notes. And I'm like, so we need to make sure that we're talking about her and putting a picture of her because this is really important. And she's like, she's not 50. I thought she was like 30.
That's so nice.
I said, I know. And it's
good
too
lighting,
bad.
good makeup artist.
Not even a bit. I've seen you in person. So, yeah, I like to say the shit works, right? I mean, it really does. But as a fitness professional, it can be interesting to navigate perimenopause changes, especially someone in the limelight to the extent that you are. Mm-hmm. Can you comment on any external pressure that you felt or that other fitness and health pros that you talk to?
Yeah, of course. Of course, absolutely. Well, first of all, I do think so much of it is a decision, and that might sound harsh to some people, but I think we all have our decision about what we think aging means. And then we tend to base our actions, our thoughts, our habits on what we've believed it to be. So what I mean by that is if you assume that 50 is washed up, old, you're done, all the pains and injuries come out, your life is over, wrinkles are going to be there, if that's what you believe, you will start to model your life after that. I really find this, where if you believe that it can be just the beginning, that you're going to navigate it differently, that you're going to thrive, that you're going to find workarounds, that your best years are yet to come, I think you start to take those actions and habits that represent that. So, people tend to roll their eyes at this idea of mindset being such a huge role, but it really is such a huge role. I mean, I take, for example, how many women I work with, they start their conversation with me with, my doctor said this. My doctor said this has happened, or this is my diagnosis, and that it means this. And my question back to them is, do you believe that? Because if you believe that, there's not a lot I can do to help you. But if you want to challenge it and say, well, okay, that might mean that for some people, but it's not going to mean it for me, you're already giving yourself a huge advantage and putting yourself in a different situation.
Oh, gosh, powerful. Really powerful. And that message so resonates with, I think, mindset. Like your expectation is definitely going to impact what you are willing to do and believe that you can do.
Yeah.
When did
the next thing will, some people will say, well, what about, some people can afford plastic surgery and this and that and whatever. Honestly, like it doesn't matter. Like I've seen people age amazingly well without having surgeries, and I've seen people fight it and have the surgeries and look amazing too. It doesn't matter. I mean, and we all know those examples of those beautiful women that are gray hair and wrinkles, and we still think they're beautiful. Mm-hmm. That's not really the variable. The variable is that decision and how that person, what they want to believe, what they want to create for their life.
Love it. I may be putting words in your mouth, so tell me so, and don't let me do it. But when did it occur to you that like this whole ageism thing is something that, because of your vast influence and your reach, that you really can make such a positive difference in so many people's lives by talking about it?
That was also a decision because obviously we teach what we walk through for sure. And I grew up with a heavy emphasis being raised that beauty was so important. I mean, I just remember learning that as a little kid, right or wrong. That's what I learned, that it's important to be attractive. It's important to do this. My dad, I remember, put like a heavy weight on that. My mom was very much into beauty and appearance. So I was raised thinking that that's so important. And this is something that a lot of people don't talk about, but it's real. So I'm going to bring it up. Even just thinking of being in my early 20s, people use that. We're conditioned to use that to get ahead in life in a lot of ways. I remember being in sales, and how you looked was an important part of that. So there was a lot of emphasis on age. I don't on looks growing up. And when aging first started hitting me, I sort of questioned my identity, which is a really sad place to be. I don't wish that on any female. I really don't, that you would have to question your value in the world based on your appearance changing. But that was a reality for me. I've thought for a while that there's another book in me on this topic about this sort of like undoing of a Barbie, like undoing of this conditioning to change, to have to look a certain way. So it affected me just like it affects a lot of women, where, gosh, who am I without an appearance or a look or whatever? So I had to sort of work through that first. And I would tell any woman to do that too, that you are so much more than your appearance. You're so much more than just what you look like on the outside. We're so much more than that. But once you establish that, also understanding that there's nothing wrong with honestly wanting to be attractive and feel good about yourself. There's nothing wrong with that either. I don't think it has to be this even either or of I have to accept all and then let everything go, or I have to accept that I'm more and I can still, look good and work to look good. So I worked through a lot of this on my own. And when I first started speaking into aging, I wasn't received with big open arms. I mean, I had people really challenging me, really saying, why do I care so much about that? And why can't I just age gracefully? And why can't we just, accept and embrace? And I thought, well, you can accept and embrace, and I can age how I want to age. We all get to age how we want to age. So the more I just got really in conviction and certainty about my beliefs and what I wanted to help and stand for and share, the less that hate started to keep coming in. And I started getting more people rooting and saying, I get this. This is empowering. This helps me too.
It's so good. And there's this meta thing. And as you were talking, I was thinking, do you think it's fate that stepped in that gave you a daughter and not a son?
Maybe. Yes, probably. Probably that I had a daughter. And, I watched her navigating the same thing. That's funny. I think about when I was 15, I didn't like my nose. And I told my mom, I don't like my nose. And she said, let's get a nose job. That's how I was raised, literally. Like, let's fix it if you don't like it. My daughter at 15, I think she's gorgeous. She's almost 15. And she says, I don't like her nose. And I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't even have come out of my mouth to let's go get a nose job. I think she's beautiful. So I'm very aware of that now and how we're perceived. And I'm very aware that she gets to see how she adds so much value to the world outside of just how she looks.
So good. So rich. Okay. And you are in this meta place of talking about rediscovering and rebranding for your audience, your community, and you are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right from this iconic fitness professional who grew into being like the weight loss guru, particularly for women. I don't know that you help men. I just think if you're a woman, you tend to attract more women. But was this literally a conscious decision that you felt like I'm pivoting, or was it happening to you?
So whatever I'm walking through in life is what I feel called to share and teach. I consider myself a teacher, really. And I think things happen to me so I can walk through it and learn the lessons and teach it. So, I think back to before I even started a fat loss and fitness brand, I was in corporate America. I was in sales. I wasn't doing anything with fitness or health. But when I had my own personal rock bottom in my life, this is 15 years ago, I just had my daughter. I gained a lot of weight. I found myself going through a divorce. I was broke all of a sudden. I was losing my house. I had everything in my life felt like it was turned upside down. And I turned to health and fitness to get my body back and feel like I had some control somewhere. And as I navigated that, I shared and I attracted other people in that similar situation. So I think back 15 years ago, I was attracting moms, that didn't have a lot of money to join a gym or didn't know a lot about nutrition. That's who I attracted as I was walking through that. And then that sort of evolved into, fitness and abs. And I started attracting a lot of people that really wanted to know, how do I get a six pack? How do I get really fit in my 40s? That was the big thing. So my brand evolved there. And then as I was aging myself and getting injuries and dealing with pain and navigating all of that, my brand yet evolved again there into, let's talk about 40s, 50s and beyond. Like what else is there? So it's not ever been this conscious decision of like, where do I want to take people next? It's really truly been, what am I walking through right now in life? And how can I shed light and share? And I very much am living in the perimenopause, menopausal time period right now. And that's what I feel called to share about.
So good. Okay. Now you opened something up that I really hoped to talk about, because so many listeners are here and they feel like, I'm just getting started. I just get going and I've got another injury. And you have just been a badass. I mean, your last few years, just in watching you and timeline wise, you can lay it out for us.
Yeah.
But you've had a couple things and you've been very open about it, which I think also puts you in a very vulnerable state, as a fitness professional. But talk a little bit about your history of injury recovery for listeners who we can tell them you're not alone.
Yes.
And if you could see NatalieJill's picture right now, I mean, picture of health.
So, I truly, I'm an open book to people and I share there's nothing I hide. So I share literally everything. So when I was first building my brand, I shared that I was a celiac. I shared that I was broke. I share everything. There's nothing I hide. When I was known for abs, I would show that I still have loose skin from when you have a baby and you gain a lot of weight. And I had videos where I would show, people could see my six pack, and then I would be squeezing my skin together to show, don't send me your picture of your skin squeezed together. I have it too. It's just how we're standing and how we're posing. So I share everything. And when it was almost 3 years ago now, I had a massive disc rupture in my lower back. This was one of many injuries. It was the beginning of it. I had, just like anyone listening, as we age, we typically have some degeneration in our spine. So if we all did an MRI, we would all show some level of degeneration in our spine. Some people feel it and have problems, some do not. I had degeneration between L5S1. I was shooting a fitness video in Florida, and I was on set for about 9 hours doing really crazy intense stuff that I don't normally even do for this video. And I ruptured a disc in my back. And it was a massive rupture to the point where it wrapped around my spinal cord. It completely cut off my sciatic nerve path. I got foot drop and my whole right leg stopped working. So it was an urgent situation. And I didn't know that it was a disc rupture. I was thinking it was piriformis syndrome. I didn't know what had happened. But I found myself pretty much in an emergency surgery where they removed the disc so I could walk again. So they just removed the rupture. I didn't have a spinal fusion or anything. So I recovered from that, and I started having massive back problems, because when you have no disc in between L5S1, you're going to have issues. So that led to me really having to make a decision when that first happened. One, like, do I even share this? That really went through my head. Like, do I share this? This is embarrassing. I'm a fitness expert. Yeah. And I'm like, that was my first thought. And then it's like, yeah, of course I share it. But I shared it as, I'm going to walk through this and figure it out. And I had to relearn a lot of things. Like, I had to relearn how am I training? What am I doing wrong? And then when my back was hurting continually after that, I had to really relearn glute activation. So many times we overlook glutes, and what I connected the dots on is, okay, the reason, if my back isn't working right, what else could take over for it? Well, if you have strong glutes and a strong core, that will take over for your lower back. And I thought, I already have a strong core, but are my glutes really strong? So I started hyper focusing on glutes, which was funny because people would say, oh, what are you doing for your glutes? Because, glutes happen to be in right now. What are you doing? Right. And I'm like, I did it just to literally fix my back. But it's amazing because I took my level 10 of back pain down to a level 3 just from learning how to activate glutes. Now, it's not a permanent fix all solution. Like, if I'm sitting too long or I'm traveling all day, it's going to flare up. I am going to have flare ups. But what that did is it put me in a state of control on, we're not just relying on meds or surgeries or doctors or being told, we're bedridden or whatever. We can take back control of our body. So, that was one injury. And I think my audience really started to navigate, wow, how is she that she did that? And just when I thought I had that mastered, I tore my bicep. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh. So I tore my bicep, which is a really difficult injury for a woman to have. Like, you have to try to tear your bicep. It's not so I tore my bicep at its elbow. I had to have a major surgery for that. And as that was healing, I broke my foot. So I was like a human pin cushion for a good 2 years. So, but it's all good. I'm healed. I have the scars to prove it. And, I was really forced to learn and navigate pain and workarounds. And I always think it's funny now. I get a little bit of a giggle when someone says to me, I can't lose weight, or I can't this because I'm over 40 or I'm over 50, or because I have an autoimmune, or because of my injuries and pain. And I'm like, okay, let's talk. Yes, I understand. And if I let you enroll me in your reasons, nothing's going to change. So it comes back to that decision question. What are you wanting for yourself? Are you wanting to make this your story and give up and have everyone feel sorry for you? Because we can do that. Or are you ready to say, no, F this, I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna find a workaround.
Boy, so much power in all of that. And I'm just going to say thank you, really, because of the example that you were as you went through all of that. How much do you think, if we flip it, that helped you to consciously say, I'm going to be a role model? They're going to see me, and when it's hard and when it's going well and when it's not going well, but I'm going through this no matter what it looks like.
So I don't think I ever had a conversation about being a role model. That's never been like the thought. My thought has always been, how can we, I believe we all have a purpose. I'm somebody of faith, and I really believe we're all here for a reason, and we all have a purpose. And I believe that things that happen to us are happening for us. And I really feel strongly called to share what I walk through if it can help others. So that looks like not sharing as a way to complain and get sympathy, as a way of sharing so others can relate to me and I can help them too. And that's the only way I can explain it. It's not about getting my attention on my stuff. It's about, is this going to help somebody else? And I don't feel it helps somebody else to coddle them. I just don't. And that could be off-putting to people, and I get it. Like, I'm not the nicest, sweetest person when people have excuses. I'm just not. I will understand. I will listen, but I'm not going to tell you you're right. That sucks. I just won't do it because it doesn't help you. And that's not my purpose here.
Beautifully said. So beautiful. What would you wish for your daughter? Like if she's 15, interesting, isn't it? That's the space between when you pivoted in your life and now. What would you hope for her during midlife and as she flips 50?
Yeah, I love my daughter so much, and I'm so proud of her. I'm so proud of who she is in the world right now. I mean, my daughter is not a conventional person. Like, she is creative. She's unique. She's already a leader. Like, she really lives a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about. She's a teenager, so she's going to get into teenage drama for sure. But she's very much somebody who believes in possibility and believes in being an example for people. And she's got very strong opinions, and she's not afraid to share them. So I'm already very proud of her. I mean, with that, what I want her to know, which I think she does know now, is that she's more than her appearance. I want her to know that she can be an example for people, and that she also has a purpose. And my daughter also very, very solid in her faith, and she knows that she has a bigger purpose too. So I as far as like, I don't know what I would change or what I would add. I would hope she'd continue on that path.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Talk a little bit about your relationship with your spouse. So I love it. Mm-hmm. I love that you actually include both your daughter and your husband. You kind of show behind the scenes. So although your decision to like be totally authentic and transparent, is your own, how do they feel about it?
Yeah. I mean, they're so used to it with me now. I mean, now what's changed is and I'm very mindful of it. Like, when my daughter was little, she'd always want to be on my videos, and she was in my workout videos with me. And I love when my daughter wants to be in videos with me, but she doesn't want to be right now. So I do not force her. Whenever she's like, can I be? I'm like, yes. But I'm very mindful of, she's got her own identity and she's her own person, and I'm not going to make her be part of mine, if that makes sense. So I don't really pull her in. And I always ask her permission. Like, if I'm want to take a picture of her or film her when she's singing, I always say, can I share this? And then a lot of times she says no. And I don't argue. If it's her life, she doesn't have to. Now, my husband's a little bit different. He doesn't have a choice. So I'm like, you're funny. People like you, get in here. Yeah. Yeah.
Part of the prenup. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I think all three of us are just, we're people, we're truthful people. It's the only way to say it. Like, we don't have anything to hide. So we're just such open books. Like, I'm not hiding anything. I mean, even when it comes to business building and my sales and marketing clients, like I don't hide anything. Like, I will tell people where I failed. I will tell people when I've been in debt. Like, there's nothing to hide. I don't feel this, like I've got to hide stuff from people. And my husband does not either.
Beautiful. And so much easier just to be authentic, right?
I say, when in doubt, just tell the truth. Like, you should never be stuck on, what do I share? Like, you just tell the truth.
So there's women listening who potentially want to maybe have a yearning to be something else, do something else, and yet they're timid. Maybe they're shying away from it. They're scared. What would you say to them?
Well, I mean, there's a lot to say there, but number one, I'm going to say, if you have something of value to add that can help somebody and you're not sharing it, then I think you're selfish. I do. It's not about our feelings. It's just not. Like, if you have something that can help somebody else and you're not sharing it, why? Because of how we feel, that makes us selfish. That's what I have to say about that.
Very powerful. Love it. What would you say about, because I know your story, but actually maybe for listeners, if we can tell that when 15 years ago, where you were. I remember distinctly the story I've heard you tell about being at the gas station.
Yeah.
And your credit card, because I have the picture of you in my head.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So maybe we need to share that story just to relate. But I mean, if anybody's compromising around relationships, I think that was my next question. But relative to that, maybe letting them peek at, what was it like for you in transition?
Yeah. So 15 years ago, I found myself in just a really, really bad situation. And the one thing that was absolutely working really well in my life is I had my daughter. And that was something I'd always wanted, was to be a mom. So I just had my daughter, and I did have a career when this was happening. At the time I was in corporate America, but what happened was I found myself going through a divorce while I was pregnant. Pretty much, we were divorced before my daughter was 1. This is when the housing market and the stock market, everything had crashed. So I was that type of person who had been very responsible. Like, I had never been in debt before in my life. I always lived below my means. I was actually quite self-righteous about it. Like, I didn't understand how people had debt and, got behind on their bills and things like that. I didn't understand it. And that's another reason I believe this happened to me, or happened for me. But I found myself not only going through a divorce and overweight and depressed, but I found myself $1.4 million in debt. And how did that happen? It happened because I bought a house that was a little bit out of my reach, because I bought thinking the market was growing so fast. I was now married. We had double income. I bought for what I thought was the right reasons. And next thing you know, the market was crashing and we were having to borrow money out of our house to pay the bills. So when I ended up divorced and realizing I couldn't keep my current job because it required full-time travel, which I can't do as a new single mom, and I took a voluntarily job demotion, I found myself super backwards and scared. And I made a really hard decision to not pay my mortgage. And it was one of the hardest decisions I ever made in my life. But I remember calling the bank and trying to renegotiate the mortgage. And this is at the time, if some of you remember back what was happening in 2007, 2008, they were not very helpful with renegotiating. So they wouldn't do it. So I remember researching foreclosure, and I learned at the time that if I stopped paying my mortgage, I would have 7 months that I could live without paying, and I could get myself back together, and I'd be able to afford to find a smaller rental and take care of my daughter. It was a decision I made. It was a scary decision, but it's one I made. And within a few weeks of missing that first payment, I went to go to the gas station and I put my American Express in the card reader. I'll never forget this, filling up my gas tank, and my card was declined. And I was like, why is my card declined? I've never, ever been late on a bill in my life. And I called American Express, and that's when they said, well, you're $1.4 million in debt. So it was a serious rock bottom place for me. And I remember the worst part of it all is I had no one I felt like I could talk to about it. I felt like it was embarrassing. I felt like I had this fake life to live up to. I didn't know what to do. I mean, it was humiliating. I remember I called my mom. I called my mom and asked her if I could borrow money, and she would co-sign a rental for me. So it was a pretty rock bottom moment for me, but it was in that time of being broke, being depressed, being overweight, being scared, feeling inauthentic, that I had a talk with myself about same question I was asking earlier on this interview. What's my decision? What is it that I want? And I had to stop myself from going into the woe is me, because it didn't matter if I say, what do I want? If I'm just like, well, I'm just depressed and I'm overweight and I'm broke and this is it, then what? That it was like, but then what? And so I just remembered asking myself, well, what is it that you do want? What is it that you do want? And what I know about people in rock bottom spaces, there's no place to go but up if you choose that. So the question to ask yourself is, what would I want? And if I'm going to become that person that is that, what actions, thoughts, habits do I need to start implementing so I can become that?
So much gold in that. I'm letting there be a pregnant pause. So I love it. All right. I'm going to ask you the last and hardest question for some, but I anticipate probably not for you. So while I've got you here, we're talking to those women 45 to 70 about how they redefine age or define it on their own terms. What question have I not asked you that I should?
Stop comparing to others. That's what I'm going to say, because that is truly the biggest problem. Right now, most women listening, I know that they do this. They might not mean to, but they do. The first thing in the morning, they're looking at their cell phone. They're turning on the TV or the news. They're answering the phone, and they're taking in world problems, everything else. They're taking in social media posts. They're taking in everybody's highlight reels of what they think is supposed to be going on. They're taking in things about politics. They're taking things that media is saying. And we get thrown into this comparison of who we think we're supposed to be to the world. And it is super detrimental. Super detrimental. It has you questioning everything in your life. When you can have more control, and I'm not perfect at this, I just want to be really real. I'm certainly have not mastered this on any level. I'm working on it. But when you can take control of starting your day very differently, whether that's with your Bible or with you're listening to podcasts, or you are doing a craft, or you're journaling, like just anything that is more positive, you will show up a lot different in the world, and you'll feel a lot better about yourself. I know for me, if I were to just scroll social media, for example, what would come up for me is people that are accomplishing more than me. They look better than me. They're doing more. They're more whatever than me. They've got more likes. They've got more this. They got more comments, like whatever. That would come up for me. And I would start feeling less than, like I'm not enough. Or maybe I would start scrolling and seeing like body positive stuff and what's wrong with women that don't want to let their hair go gray. And I might go down that road. So I'm saying I can't help the world. I can't help other people. I can't be my best self, be the best wife, the best mom, the best boss, the best, all those things, unless I'm fueling myself first with those other things and not reacting.
So rich. That was gold. Truth bombs to close this podcast. And I thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And listeners, it's your turn. So I know if you had been sitting in my seat, there is a question that you wish I would have asked NatalieJill. So you can drop that at the show notes at flipping50.com/redefine aging. And we will have every single social media link to reach Natalie. And Natalie, where would be the best place, first place for them to go to get the most juice? Is your website, your
sorry.
podcast?
Yes, either one. So I would say go to either NatalieJill.com.
Okay.
You can find me on social at NatalieJill Fit on all the platforms.
Yeah.
And I do have a podcast. It's called Listen Up. You can find that anywhere podcasts are played.
So awesome. And it is great. Just vote for that. So again, everybody, all the show notes, all the links for you will be at Flipping 50. That's a danger of having too many podcasts. Flipping50.com/redefine aging. And what are you waiting for? Let's start Flipping 50 today.